Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Cole. It's Sunday afternoon, July 16th. We're now entering week 3 of Humanities 2333 Philosophy of Life for the summer 2023 term on the second 7-week schedule. Everyone, we're throwing quite a bit at you this week. It's necessary to do that through much of this syllabus because we're trying to get an entire course in 7 weeks, including some material that I know will be new to many of you. So there are several things I need to mention. First of all, our first written assignment is due Wednesday the 19th. You may attach it to an email to me, or it should be simple to upload it in the modules area of the course website. Go to the Plato and Aristotle unit, Unit 3, I believe, and you'll see a link at which you can upload your paper. Everyone, very quickly, unfortunately, our new textbook does not include a chapter dedicated to Plato and Aristotle. The author only makes comments on Plato and Aristotle in passing, and you could look those up in the index. I don't know how helpful they would be to you. You have my class notes. Then in the assignment itself, the assignment description that we gave you, there are links to a couple of helpful sources. I hope they will be helpful. The Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, the Catholic Encyclopedia is especially good on Aristotle. There were a total of 3 links there. Everyone, take some initiative and look on your own if you wish. I would emphasize there is some pretty substantive stuff out there and some that's more superficial. For this assignment, you need to try to confine yourself to the more substantive stuff. Now, we sent you a link from the PBS Crash Course Philosophy series on Plato. And also there's a set of notes that I posted to the modules area of the course website under Unit 3. Some notes I took from the great classical scholar W.K.C. Guthrie and his volume, one volume of his History of Greek Philosophy is devoted to Aristotle. So I posted some notes, a few pages of notes that I took that I hope will be helpful to you. Keep in mind, everybody, there are several issues you could write about with regard to this question of whether you are a Platonist or an Aristotelian. Perhaps the central issue is the relation of form to matter. So keep that uppermost in your mind. You might want to concentrate on that in your paper. Look carefully at what I have to say about it, and also the various research sources. Remember, everybody, it's not primarily a research paper. It will more than likely help you to do some research. The assignment is asking you to reflect on whether you think your own views of the world are closer to Plato or Aristotle. Now then, for this week on the syllabus, everybody, in addition to the assignment that's due Wednesday the 19th, we wanted to finish Unit 4, and we also have Units 5 and 6. So let me go over each of those briefly. We talked about Unit 4 last time. I asked you to get started on it and perhaps finish it this week. So the issue of how we know, the issue, what we call the issue between the rationalists and the empiricists in epistemology or theory of knowledge. Okay? So we said Descartes would be a rationalist. He believes by doing nothing more than reflecting, he can establish the existence of himself, God, and objects in the external world. Then John Locke, the first great empiricist, comes along and says, no, sensory experience is everything. That's the only source for knowledge. The mind is a blank slate on which sensory experience writes. But then David Hume comes along and says, well, Locke is jumping to a conclusion that there's a correspondence between our sense experience and objects that we perceive in the world, because we know our sense experience can be mistaken. So he's an empiricist, but he's also a skeptic. We could characterize his belief as the view that it's very difficult to establish that you know much of anything. So he can be viewed as both a skeptic and an empiricist. And then Immanuel Kant comes along and comes to a provisional solution or conclusion to this debate, and most philosophers would agree It was an advance in philosophy, Kant's contribution. Kant says there is a rational and an empirical element to all knowledge. Sense experience may be the occasion for knowledge, but in addition to the sense experience, our minds have to be primed, or we might say loaded with a kind of software that allows us to make sense of the sense experience. And we do that in terms largely of the categories of substance and property, the properties that a thing has, or very often in philosophy they're called accidents, substance and accident, and also cause and effect. All right, that's Unit 4 that you should be finishing up. There's also Units 5 and 6. Unit 6 is on artificial intelligence. That has been a preoccupation of philosophy in recent decades. Some of my students may know as much or more about this than I do. Take a look at my class notes for Unit 6 up on the course website. Some of the issues that are raised are, can an artificial intelligence entity conceivably be equivalent to or even exceed the capacities of a human being? Can artificial intelligence be sentient? That is to say, does it have consciousness? Okay. Does it have a sort of inner life the way we understand ourselves to have? Okay. Can its capacities be the same as or greater than those of a human being? Is it doing or could it do more than just extremely rapid computation? Then there's the issue of whether artificial intelligence could be dangerous. Could it pose a threat to the existence of the human race? Could it conceivably turn on human beings? Now, we've scheduled a discussion for after you turn in the written assignment on the 19th. I believe the 21st and 22nd, Friday and Saturday, we're scheduling a discussion, our discussion number 2, on artificial intelligence. And I've posted a couple of links to articles, pretty brief ones, I think, for you to look at before joining in that discussion. So please post twice on Friday and Saturday, the 21st and 22nd, to get full credit for that discussion. And open up the assignment that's been emailed to you and is also posted on the course website to get an idea of what we'd like you to discuss. We're just asking for your views on artificial intelligence. Okay, everybody, that leaves Unit 5. Okay. Unit 5 is on the relation of mind and body, and also the philosophical problem of free will and determinism. Okay. All right. The mind-body problem is the issue of what is the nature of mind and how is it related to your body. There are at least 2 views. There may be more, but 2 basic views that you would generally encounter. Materialism would be the view that your mind is nothing separate, distinct, and apart from that gray matter between your ears. In other words, we identify the mind with the brain if we're materialists. Okay, that would be materialism on the problem of mind and body. Okay. The mind is strictly identified with that stuff between your ears. And we know that if we injure or damage the brain, it affects what we would call our mental life, or at least it can, which perhaps is evidence in favor of materialism. But people are apprehensive about materialism because I suppose they think it's reductionistic. The alternative view would be dualism, which is that there are 2 incompatible things going on that cannot be reduced one to the other. Okay. There's the brain, with which the mind seems to be associated, but the dualist would insist that you can't reduce the mind to the brain. There's something immaterial going on there, perhaps having something to do with a supernatural soul. Now, as you might imagine, views on this issue tend to divide according to whether the philosopher's worldview is secular or religious. And religiously devout people are attracted to dualism because they don't want to reduce us to strictly a material thing. Okay, so that's the mind-body problem. We posted a couple of readings for you to look at. Steven Pinker, a psychologist, and the late novelist and essayist Tom Wolfe. Tom Wolfe is disturbed by materialism. He tends toward dualism. Steven Pinker suggests we don't need to be alarmed about materialism on mind and body. Finally, there's an article by Oliver Burkeman from the Guardian newspaper on the problem of consciousness, what's sometimes called in philosophy the hard problem, because it's very hard to give an account of consciousness or what it means to be sentient or to have an inner life, as most all of us perceive ourselves as having. Okay. Could a computer or an artificial intelligence entity have such a thing? It's related to philosophical issues surrounding artificial intelligence. But take a look at those for what it's worth on your exam. You can maybe expect one item on each of those readings. Just a moment, you all. Logging back in here. Now then, related to the problem of mind and body is the problem of free will and determinism. Okay. Materialism seems to be associated with determinism. Determinism is the view that everything we do is determined by our material environment, things that we encounter, including maybe but not limited to things that we eat, things that happen to us. We're strictly determined by our material environment. Now that suggests that we do not have free will. Okay. The opposite view could be called libertarianism. Now you may have heard of libertarianism as a political doctrine. This is a sense of the word separate and distinct from that. On this philosophical problem, to be a libertarian just means you believe human beings have free will. Okay. And that view may be associated with a theistic or religious worldview. Now, one aspect of the problem is that if we're determined, it seems to be very difficult to hold us morally responsible. We can always appeal to what it was that determined us. So it wasn't our fault. It was something that happened to us that made us do wrong, as we could conventionally describe it. Okay? So a libertarian view on free will and determinism makes it fairly easy to hold people responsible. A hard determinist point of view would not. Okay? It could be that if we accept hard determinism, we might continue to imprison or punish people, but we might call it something else. Maybe we're putting them away for their own good. But it seems hard to give an account of how we're justified in holding people responsible and punishing them if we are hard determinists. Now there's yet another view called soft determinism, or in one of the video clips I sent you from the Crash Course Philosophy series, it's called compatibilism. Compatibilism means what I call in the class notes soft determinism. And that means that determinism is somehow compatible with holding people responsible. So look and see what kind of sense you can make of that, if you can make any of it at all, okay? But there are many philosophers who are soft determinists. One thing students get wrong, there's hard determinism and soft determinism, and the people who hold both those positions are determinists, one no less than the other. But the soft determinist or the compatibilist believes that that is somehow compatible, or that we can somehow justify holding people morally responsible even if we are determinists. Okay, so that will be discussed in the class notes, so see what kind of sense you can make of that. There are at least three positions on free will and determinism: libertarianism, hard determinism, and then soft determinism, or what some people would call compatibilism. Okay, everybody, once we get through with that, the following week is our midterm exam, Wednesday the 26th. We've assigned you a little bit material from Units 7 and 8 that we have on the syllabus for early next week, not this week. We're only going to have a couple of days to look at that material because we've got to get it in before the midterm exam. That's what comes from trying to squeeze all this material in 7 weeks. But Units 7 and 8 are not this week, but rather next week. I'll say a little bit more about that and about our midterm exam when I talk to you a week from now. Right now, what we've got to concern ourselves with is finishing up Unit 4 and then Unit 5 on mind and body, free will and determinism, and then Unit 6 on artificial intelligence. The written assignment is due the 19th, Wednesday the 19th. The midterm exam will be 1 week after that. And once the deadline arrives for the turning in the written assignment, I will get some material out about the midterm exam. Everybody, if you took an early look at the Unit 5 class notes, I edited them over the weekend. I removed about 1/4 of the material. Now, if you take a look back at that, some of the material that you saw before is not there anymore. I felt I had to do that because we're trying to get so much in this part of the syllabus. Okay, everybody, paper is due on this Wednesday the 19th. There'll be a discussion the 21st and the 22nd, and then a midterm exam the following week, about which we'll say more when we talk to you about a week from now. So take it easy, study hard. We'll talk to you once again about a week from now at this time.